This is my buddy Chris, and this is his S13. After years of abuse, the stock rod bolts in his SR20 saw their way out through a hole in the side of the block. Wanting to try something different, Chris decided he hated himself enough to begin the arduous process of fitting a straight-six Chevrolet Vortec 4200 mated to an AR5 transmission into his beloved 240SX. We plucked this behemoth of an engine out of a 2008 GMC Envoy, gently placed it into the engine bay of his S13, and quickly came to the realization that we were going to have to do some cutting of the firewall in order for this to work.
That was intense. Get in your home. Ready?
Yep.
That was fine. Definitely should have put a jack under it first. I asked if you were ready. He was not ready.
Alright, come down. Ooh, I need it all.
Alright, I'm on the rack now.
Yeah, it's front heavy. It's off the jack.
This thing looks crazy though. Look at that. So we've been doing a bunch of cutting, as you can well tell, and we might cut even more.
Kind of just follow the line of this steering boot thingy straight down here, and then bring it up so the plenum will actually stick back in here. That's going to be a pain. And then I think from this line here and the body and this line here, we need to cut straight across and kind of triangulate it up and away from in here to possibly be able to get the valve cover out, because it's 2 inches back behind the firewall now.
Yeah.
But the shifter location couldn't be better. The shifter comes up and back, so it's like perfectly center of where it would be on a stock S13. So I don't think we'll have to make any changes. Maybe heat and bend the stock shifter. I'm super excited. It's been quite a while since I've done any updates on the Vortec 4200 240 S13. I've been collecting parts and waiting on parts, trying to fit the motor and transmission in there. As you can see, we've done a lot of cutting on the firewall. Managed to slide the engine way far back there. I hope it works out okay. Not really certain yet. I'm pretty happy with where it sits and how low it sits, although it is still pretty high, but I don't think anything is scoop or an aftermarket hood with a cowl or something can't handle. Anyway, inside we've got the shifter actually back in the stock 240 location. I think this transmission's like 10 inches shorter than the CD09 that I had in here before. Anyway, it feels great. As you can see, the intake and exhaust ports are inside now. So we're gonna do a bunch of sheet metal work in here to obviously close all that off, and probably not done cutting. The biggest thing I'm waiting on is the oil pan, because it's still sitting on the steering rack right now, so it'll probably come up an inch-ish, something like that. Hopefully not quite an inch. I may have to relocate that steering rack just a touch, sink it deeper into that subframe up there. Not certain yet. Still waiting on the guy to send me the oil pan I ordered. Actually asked him if he would sell it without fully welded together, because I may have to make some modifications. He agreed to do that at a little cheaper price. But anyway, other parts I've got. So I've got my stainless exhaust flange here for the turbo manifold, along with a bunch of L's, short radius 90s, long radius 90s, and 45s. They all came with a coating similar to what's inside there, so I've polished them up. That alone took about 5 hours just for this box. Plastic snap together parts that my brother Sean has 3D printed for me and sent me. These are the exact diameter of the Schedule 40 stainless 1.5 inch pipe that I'll be using. I've got the collector that I ordered off eBay, I believe. I don't know, it was cheap. But one of the only ones I could find in the configuration that I wanted. Also, I've got a 4-foot stick of Schedule 40 stainless. One thing I'm excited about, the Calvin Nivlac designed this kit to relocate the alternator. Stock, the alternator sat really high up here and it's really hard to make an intake in anything if you don't want it going over top like the stock one. You could either pick to relocate the alternator down here or on the driver's side or over here on the passenger side, depending on if you wanted to keep AC or power steering. I'm keeping neither because I have an electric power steering pump, Mini Cooper, that I hope can still sit here because I think this guy's going away. So I'm relocating the alternator over here, and that's what I'm going to bolt on first today. And I believe this thing comes off, which I did order, but it was fairly cheap. I thought I was going to relocate that. Did not know that they were going to make a passenger side relocation kit. So anyway, it'll put the alternator in here. I'm going to put that in first. Then I'm going to bolt my flange on with, actually I get from Atlas Industries. He sells all kinds of neat little parts. Stainless studs and nuts versus the bolts from stock. He sells a lot of neat OEM parts. I bought several things. I also bought the intake studs and nuts from him. So anyway, I'm going to put the alternator relocation kit on. Then I'm going to put the header flange on, studs, nuts, and bolt my turbo onto the collector and set it in the car where I want it. Then my plan is to run just some stainless rods to kind of hold it in place. Once I'm happy with the location, hopefully that will allow me to then bolt the flange to this piece of angle iron that I've milled down. It's good enough for who it's for flat. Then hopefully I can do most of this on the modeling on the bench and not have to do so much of it in the car. This is going to be extremely time consuming. It'll probably be a long time before I get done. I've never built a turbo manifold or an exhaust manifold or headers or anything like that. So this and one more time will make 2 for me. I hope it turns out as good as I want it to look, but we'll see. I had to order some silicone plugs so that I can back purge with my door regulator that I bought to hopefully keep it as nice as it can be and get enough penetration in the welds, and I just hope it works. Anyway, we're gonna get to bolting in this alternator relocation kit. Okay, so I got the alternator relocation bracket in. It's just fit loosely. I don't have anything really tight. I just wanted to confirm how far back it stuck. So coming out of the first runner here, I knew whether I could go down or, you know what I mean. So I wouldn't run into anything. Let's just call it that. I was able to take the other bottom idler out because it came with this little guy up here. I think it's going to look very, very good. That will leave me all sorts of room for activities with the plenum, although back there, as you can see, it's pretty tight. I may have to cut about an inch more out there, out of the firewall back there. Still not 100% certain what I'm going to do with the steering shaft, whether I'm going to leave the stock one, which is ideal. I may come over more to go down with that line right there and do some sort of aftermarket steering column, just come through the new firewall that I will build. It may look better. I don't know. I'm not certain yet. We'll deal with this side. When we get to it, I think I'm going to start, I'm going to set the turbo up there, put the studs in and bolt the flange on. We'll get an idea where the turbo is going to sit. Like I said, this and one more time will make 2 for me. I'm sure I'm going to f it out a lot, but we'll see. Wish me luck. All right, I've got the turbo kind of set into place. So supported by this engine hoist here. A pair of vice grips kind of hold it in place. Collector is bolted on. I'm going to weld this piece of stainless, something like that, to this side, just to support the collector. Then I'll do another one over here, I'll unbolt the turbo, and I'll probably end up putting several more. I just don't know where. But once I get the turbo out of the way, it'll kind of give me a little more flexibility where I mount things to it. So wish me luck. Good morning, everyone. I'm back out in the shop after trying to get these plastic parts to kind of get a template of what I'm going to shoot for. I have no idea what I'm doing. It looks a little wonky from different angles. I've got 4 runners so far. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kind of figured out, I think. I have no idea if they're anywhere near equal length or whatnot. I'm obviously trying not to have one 2 inches long and one like 10 inches long, but I don't know. My best guesstimate is they're around 15 inches long each, give or take a couple inches. I do not know what kind of effect that'll have with the compartment constraints. I honestly don't really care. I'm not shooting for every little horsepower that the motor has to offer. I'm looking for 500-ish, and I think if I can make this look as decent as it looks with these plastic fittings, I think I'll be doing okay. I'm waiting for some more parts to print. I had to print more short radius 90s last night. It took 11 hours for them to print. I think I printed like 16 of them or so. Anyway, I've got some more parts printing in there, some long radius 90s and some straights, I believe. I need more straights to be able to finish the mock-up. So until then, I've got everything kind of benchmarked and labeled as to where they go. I think I'm actually going to start cutting some pipe and tacking together for runner number, is that 3? Yeah, that's 3. That's the one farthest to the back. I kind of wish this flange went the other way, shy of cutting it off and re-welding it, which I guess I could do no problem. I don't know. I'm just going to send it like the way it came. I think it'll turn out pretty good. Some of these longer ones are going to interfere with the way the motor mount is right now. These motor mounts are going away. I think for both sides, I'm just going to make a plate and then make mounts back to the stock KA or SR motor mounts just for simplicity and cleanliness. So this will be out of the way. It'll just be a plate, and then it'll be something much smaller that kicks down here. So I've got all this room to kind of run wild. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm not certain that runner number 1 is going to be sufficient. I may have to bring it up more and then this way and around just because of the alternator bracket. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but once I get some more parts printed and these stuck on here a little better, I can kind of mock it up. Until then, I'm going to start working on this one. I've got this one fairly locked in. This one and number 2. I don't think those are going to change much. I don't think they can really change a whole lot. So anyway, I'll put y'all on some time lapse and we'll see how this turns out. This afternoon working on the turbo manifold. I thought I had 2 of them done, but as you can see, this one hangs a little low. I test fit this manifold on the engine, and this hits where the motor mount on the engine goes. So I'm gonna have to take this one back off, clock it this way a little bit, shorten it up a touch, and re-tack it together, which is completely fine. As you can see, I blew a little hole in there. I was getting a little impatient that day. I needed to redo it anyway. But I've got 1, 2 kind of mocked up. 3 is the one I got to fix. 4 is good where it's at. 5 is, I think, I don't really like this kind of section. It's a little bit wonky. So I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit, kind of make it flow maybe with this one and then dump over rather than whatever this is. This is, I don't know. Anyway, and then I got number 6 to do, which I'll have to take this support out. I may just put another support back here, or if I have all the runners tacked into place by then, that'll be more than enough to hold it in place. So yeah, guess I'm gonna put you guys on a little time lapse and we'll get started. Morning. Out here in the shop, just kind of looking over what I did yesterday. Had to reroute the second runner. It dropped down too far and was hitting on the engine mount, or where the engine mounts go. Had to cock that up, and it took me quite a while to make all those little tight bends. You can see how many pieces are in there, and they all just fit so-so. But I got one other runner started, the third one, so I'm up to here, so I just need to connect it to here. I'd mock the other ones up just to see how they flow. It looks a lot better from this angle, just the way everything curves and flows. I hate a lot of straight sections. I feel like it looks like a pair of headers or something for an old big block like this. Hate it. Anyway, going to try to finish the third runner. I'm going to try to finish this one today, and I'm going to try to finish this one today. I have spent entirely too much time on this, which I knew it would take a long time, and it's tedious. If you have the money and can buy one, go buy it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's the sense of satisfaction of building one, I guess, is there, but do not recommend. It is, it's worth the $1,700 or $1,800 that Artec sells one. I don't necessarily know that it would fit my car, so rather than spend that and guess and then modify my car to fit the manifold, I'm just making a manifold to fit. Just be prepared to spend 4 or 5 times the amount of time you think it's going to take, then maybe even multiply that by 2. I don't know. It's up there. Good morning, y'all. Back out here on a wet weekend. It's cold, very cold. Working on the turbo manifold again. I've got the third runner almost all the way done. We'll tack together. This piece is still loose. Basically, this whole process boils down to you form a runner, something like that. You make the first piece, you take that piece of plastic out, and you line it up and tack it in and just keep on going. All the way up the line till you get up here. Measure, cut, repeat, sand, sand, sand some more, keep going. However, this little guy right here, little belt sander, saves the day. Saved me a lot of time and from doing it with a angle grinder. We'll keep chugging along.
If you remember from the last video, we showed a little bit of the intake manifold being welded. So while Chris continues working on the turbo manifold, we're going to go back in time and show what all went into fabricating the custom intake manifold for this Vortec 4200.
Alright, today we are going to be making intake runners for the intake itself, going into the intake plenum. I've been working on this since yesterday. I machined this down flat, both sides. I'd ordered this off of Xometry or whatnot, using the file from Calvin on the 4200 wiki page. He also provided on that page this little 3D printed design that presses these into this shape so that they match up pretty much right on point with the shape of the intake runner on that side, and then it remains this side circular. He did sort of like a velocity stack style, kind of like this, which I wasn't sure I was going to do. I didn't really see a point. I wasn't going to put mine through the intake runner to have this sticking out. I wanted it kind of flush. I don't know what works better. Just seemed easier to either flare this out and buy a bit, a hole saw bit, which after I did flare these out, they ended up 2.5 inches. And I did buy a 2.5 inch carbide bit hole saw. So for the other side, the plenum rail, I'll be drilling holes in that, and then these are 2.5 inches on the outside, so that'll make welding those perfect to where they can sit flush. And I'll go smooth them out and clean these up because they are kind of scarred up a little bit from the lathe. So I've cut these down to 4-inch pieces to start, and they end up about 3.850 when they're done in the shape. And then I'll be putting these in here and pressing them together, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. Try to get this guy to look like that guy. The tubing that I'm using, this is kind of difficult for me to find the answer to. I believe Calvin used 2.5 inch. The only thing I could find way down in one of the comments to one of his videos. He said he used 2.5 inch, but wish he would have used 2.25. So I went with 2.25. This is 16 gauge. I think I ordered this off aceraceparts.com. I ordered 2 24-inch sections of it. You can just use one if you cut it perfectly. I just want a little bit back up, so I had some room to mess up, but I think these two pieces of tubing were 60 bucks shipped, I think. Not that bad, but let's go to the lathe and form it. There you can see we have our bell shape, and I didn't apply much pressure. Just a little WD-40. The pipe holds back up out here, and the screwdriver just pries out from the tailstock. Little nipple sticking in there. So I'm gonna clean up the edges a little bit, and I guess that's it. Just clean up the edges, and I gotta make 3 more, I believe. All right, now that I've got all 6 of my runners turned out with the little velocity stack type deal, I'm going to put them in this die device. This sits on here like that, and then it goes in here, and then I squish it, and then it ends up forming the aluminum around this piece. It makes a pretty good fit from where it started. You can see the gaps it has on each side before forming, so I'll show you that now. As you can see, that side is pressed completely inside there. As you can see, it turned out very well. They're just some homemade 3D printed tools. Yes, I had a lathe, but this part is really, in my opinion, unnecessary. I'm going to be running pretty low boost, so I don't think anything like this little velocity stack is going to add much. Anyway, I've got 5 more to do, so I'm going to do those, and I'll show you what I got when I get it finished. So yesterday I was working on the oil pan. I've kind of discovered that after getting the front portion in and kind of getting the height of the engine set where I thought it should kind of go, I couldn't really tell where I should put the sump because of the steering rack. The steering rack being where it is, I mean, if I want this engine to set any sort of low or where I think it should go, or just as low as possible, then I need to relocate the steering rack. So I've ordered the WiseFab steering rack relocation kit. I guess it moves at 46 millimeters forward and 5 millimeters down. So it'll give me about a 1/4 inch clearance for the oil pan to where it is 1 3/4 inches forward. So that'll allow me to have a bigger sump. So I don't know how much room I need for the fittings and everything that fit into the power steering rack with my lines and everything. And I want to make the sump as big as possible. So I'm gonna wait till I get that kit. Hopefully it'll be here by next weekend. I'm not certain it will, but I just ordered it today. It's Sunday. So anyway, today I'm gonna jump back on the intake manifold and try to get this piece of 1/4x4 aluminum, which will be what my plenum welds to. Try to get those drilled and welded in. That way I can hog these babies out a little bit to match and then weld them on the inside also. Because I didn't want to do that until I had it welded to this, so there was no flexing or whatnot from it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get those drilled out, see if we can make some progress on this intake. I know I'm jumping around a lot. As you can see, I got the turbo manifold. It's all tacked together. I filmed a lot of time lapse for this. It's just so tedious, and you just start at one end and go piece by piece with those 3D printed replicas of the tubing. Sand and fit, and sand and fit, sand and fit. It was a lot of work to get to this stage. I don't want to weld it out yet. There's a possibility once I get the oil pan in after I relocate the steering rack, there's a possibility that I may have to tweak it the way it sits one way or the other. I wanted to sit pretty, I don't know, I guess square with the engine. I don't know that it matters a whole lot if it's got a tiny bit of tilt to it, but I was going to try to get it as close as possible, and I can, you know, just fudge on the runners one way or the other if I need to before I do that. We'll get to drilling these holes in this intake, maybe do a little welding today. Okay, so I've got my holes drilled in my plenum base here. I've got this sitting in here at a little tilt so that it will on the engine bay that it will, actually I'll show you. So the plenum will tilt up this way. Trying to match that angle. I don't want to cut too much farther into there and replace the whole steering column, which I may end up doing. I don't know. But I'd like to match that angle, which I kind of have it set to that. Got my welder set up. Got to sharpen my tungsten, and then we're going to weld this out. All right, I made a little progress. Got this tacked and kind of welded in. I'm just switching sides and taking it slow and letting it cool off. We're about a third of the way done, I believe. I'm gonna keep welding and try to get this done before the day is over, so I don't have to work on it next weekend, and I can hopefully concentrate on the WiseFab rack relocation kit. Okay, I finished welding the plenum side of the intake runners. Turned out pretty good. I had to rush it a little bit, so got a little more heat in certain areas than I wanted to, but it turned out very well. I'll still have to come inside and port these things and weld them and then grind them back out. Same with this side. Come in here and clean those up with a carbide bit, weld them out, and then run back through them with a carbide bit to smooth them all out. But I had a little blowout there. And there was in a position that I couldn't really see what I was welding good enough. So anyway, I guess that's it for this weekend. Hopefully I get the WiseFab rack relocation kit so I can start on it next weekend. If not, I guess I'll continue on with the plenum. I'm going to try to get something drawn up on Onshape, the little CAD software I use online for the plenum. Just convert those to DXF files and cut them out on the plasma table. Anyway, I guess I'll be back when I get some more to work with.
So as you can probably tell, Chris has a lot of work left on his to-do list. Weld his oil pan together, install the WiseFab steering rack relocation kit, and finally build some motor mounts for this big old Chevy Straight 6. But if you're into that sort of thing, stay tuned for more and hit that subscribe button. But for now, thanks for watching and see you next time.